Okay, we are ready to get started on today's Zoom call. And as you're on, you can jump on and jump off anytime you want. And this is being recorded, so we will be able to see it afterwards. So you're going to be able to see my screen. And today's call is going to be on Q&A on the Rife machine. So for you Rife experts, maybe you could add some little pieces to this, or when we do get this posted up on our Facebook page and elsewhere, if you have any other caveats that you have become um, so acquainted with that you might be able to share other things. So people that have been using the Rife machine a long time, this is really easy to understand. And we've had patients that have brought in little um, carrying cases that they built because they're really handy people. And we've had people make carry cases out of laundry baskets where the wires can come through and everything fits together so they can move it around. Um, I'm a pretty handy person and think that it would be pretty easy to do that. We've had a patient that was thinking about marketing a carrying case for it. So I don't know if they've ever gotten anything farther than that. But we keep ours in our room, in our bedroom, and that's just kind of our Rife spot. Now, we use our Rife every night while we sleep. As you know, my wife had melanoma at the time of this recording, be almost 5 years this coming October. But we still run it every night, or just about every night. Some nights I forget to turn it on, but most every night we run it. Um, and we run it on the programs that I created for her and for me that the bulb lies between us in the bed. We'll talk a little bit more about placement and ideas for that. But this here is an older model, actually a Liberator, if you have this model. And this picture, I should take my own pictures. I actually stole this off of Rife's website, shows the lighted ground thing that none of my patients or very few of my patients have, but it's certainly not necessary. Okay, so one of the things I tell everybody is that the Rife machine is not a magic wand. However, that being said, there are no magic wands in curing. We've seen tons of miracles with this thing. So, and we've seen some really cool things that maybe I wouldn't say are miracles, but we've seen some really cool things using it not only for cancer and not only for Lyme disease, but when patients use it for other things. It's in my mind, you guys have this tool, you have this very valuable tool, and most people, I would argue, underuse it. So you have a tool that's underutilized, it's kind of sad. Now maybe everybody's super healthy and they don't have any issues. But I always tell people, so I'll tell you again, that you have this wonderful tool. It should be your first go-to guide in anything that you have going on. So make this your go-to guide in any health issue that you got going on. So if you have headaches, try running the headache program. If you have a skin rash, run a program for rash or virus or fungus. You got foot fungus, run your foot fungus program. There are almost 2,000 programs that we put on your Rife machine that can be used for just about everything. The other question that we get from a lot of people is that, are you ever going to burn the bulb out, or are you ever going to run the machine out? The machine I personally have at home, I think, is a 7-year-old machine. So we've never blown a fuse. We've never blown a transistor. We've never, damaged the bulb. You know, we've never had to replace anything on it. And it's still the original computer, which that's the biggest surprise. That's the biggest problem we have with the Rife machines, I'll be honest with you. I'm not a PC person anymore. I am definitely a Mac person because PCs just don't seem to hold up. And that's another thing that sometimes I forget to tell people. Maybe it's best if you don't connect the Rife, your Rife computer to your home internet, because that's where you're going to have more. I think that's why we maybe don't have problems with our computer, because we don't have it connected to the internet. because that's where you'll pick up a lot of viruses and stuff um, if you ever go on the web um, or are connected to your internet. So that might be a good idea that sometimes I forget to tell people. So we get a lot of testimonies from patients that say that they use the Rife for whatever for their nephew, and their you know they saw some really cool things with it. So I would definitely say use it for everything that you can think of. Can it hurt someone? So that's another question that everybody asks. What if I use the Rife and it, is there a danger that my spouse doesn't have prostate cancer? So, maybe we should sleep in separate beds. The answer to that is absolutely not. So if I'm running prostate cancer program on myself and my wife doesn't have a prostate, nor does she have cancer, then it's just not going to help her. So there's not going to be any benefit, but there's not going to be any harm. So there's, in your programs, if you're running your nightly program that I created for you, and you have, let's say, breast cancer, your spouse doesn't have breast cancer, but that nightly program has other things other than breast cancer. It has other just different adenocarcinoma programs, different carcinoma programs that can be beneficial for your spouse as well. If I have liver programs, I put liver programs in everybody and detox programs in everybody's program. So those are frequencies that can be very beneficial for the other person sleeping in bed with you. So even if you're cuddling with the bulb and your spouse is now 4 feet away from you in a king-size bed, they're still going to get benefit from it. And we get a lot of testimonies from people who say, wow, well, since my wife's been using it for her breast cancer, you know, my arthritis is better, or, I seem to have more energy. Because when you use frequencies that stimulate body cells, your cells are going to work better. And if your cells work better, it's going to help you. Also, the Rife, by virtue of what it does, it actually functions also as kind of a low frequency PEMF machine, which, if you ever heard me talk about PEMF machines, there's the low frequency kind and the high frequency kind. So if you were in our office and you used PEMF in our office, you used the high frequency PEMF. The low frequency PEMF don't have as much benefit as the high frequency PEMF, but if you do it for 8 hours at a nighttime, it can have some good benefits. So it does help add charge to your cell membranes. So remember, your cell membranes hold a charge similar to a battery or a capacitor. And that's one of the reasons why the Rife works, is it adds cell charge to your cell membranes. So it's helping your spouse, even if it's not running specific frequencies that your spouse may need. That makes sense? So certainly don't shy away from your spouse getting the benefit of the Rife while you're using the Rife. It just seems a shame. So make sure that you explain that to them, or have them watch this section of this video if they're questioning whether they should sleep in the same bed as you. Um, there's also, a way, if you do tell me and you're doing better, like with my wife, she's not, when she was in the throes of her melanoma, I had her snuggle with the bulb. Well, she's not anymore. She's doing fantastic. So I actually reprogrammed our night program. So we're doing cancer in every night, but we're also doing some other cancer programs. So is a preventable thing for us too. So you can run programs that are then that is more of a preventative medicine per se. So let's say let's pretend that my dad died of prostate cancer, which he didn't, and then I have lots of prostate cancer in my family. I could run the prostate cancer program knowing that I don't think I have prostate cancer. I have no signs of prostate cancer, but I could run the prostate cancer program to help prevent any cancer cells from starting. Because remember, with any cancer, how long does that person have cancer before it's detected? 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 20 years? Yeah, like maybe the 5-year, 10-year probably, right? So if I could start treating it with the Rife long before it ever becomes a clinically diagnosed cancer, I could not get cancer, quote unquote. I could not get a diagnosis of cancer because I'm actually killing it long before it gets to the stage of being diagnosed. Remember, if it's the size, the cancer is the size of the tip of a ballpoint pen, it's not going to be detectable on a CT scan even, or nor is it going to be detectable on a PET scan. And at the size of the tip of a ballpoint pen, it's already 2 million cells large. So the cancer has to be pretty darn big and pretty active and be going for a fairly long time before it's even going to be detected by even our gold standard of detection today. So just remember that. So using a Rife as a preventative tool is a very wise thing. So if you have heart disease in your family, run the heart blockage programs. If you have um, different diseases in your family, you can run those programs even though you're not diagnosed with those diseases. So I don't want you to be tied to your Rife machine 24/7, but certainly, it's a good idea to create a space. And in our house, I'm not really keen on having a TV on in your bedroom because of what it does to your brain, and it doesn't let you sleep, etc. But we have a TV in our bedroom, I'll confess, because our bedroom is our Rife station too. So if any of the kids aren't doing well, my kids are getting much older now, and 2 of my grown kids have a Rife in their house. So if they're not feeling well, we have 2 still at home, semi at home, and they go in and run the Rife. So they can sit and watch TV, or they can sit and when we go and sit and watch a football game, I'll turn the Rife on. So that's how you want to use the machine. Now, again, if you've not ever run any programs other than the ones I created, I challenge you to start looking at those and start deciding on some different programs that you can run. Does that help? I don't know if I unmuted everybody here, so let me look here real quick if I did. All right. Let me pull this down. So I think everybody is muted. So let me unmute all if you guys have any questions. All right. So anybody questions so far? Everybody's so quiet. Okay, so let's move on. So can the Rife hurt anybody? We talked about that. There is one exception. So can the Rife hurt anybody? Yes, it can if you're a Lyme patient. So if you have Lyme disease, then you have to be careful. And everybody here has heard of what a Herx reaction is? Yes, no, maybe? So Herx reaction, by definition, is that if you kill something in your body, that you are producing what are called endotoxins, and those endotoxins are then stimulating an immune response and/or are overwhelming your liver detox pathways. So the only time that happens is with Lyme disease. And there's some other tick-borne diseases that could possibly happen. There's a tick fever that could happen with. But it's because Lyme disease is a Borrelia bacteria, and its co-infections are gram-negative bacteria that have in their cell membrane, they have a lipopolysaccharide, which is a fairly large chemical that it gets liberated when you kill it. So these lipopolysaccharides get liberated when you kill the Lyme, and they're big enough for the immune system to recognize and go, well, what the heck is that? Let's kill it. And then you fire an immune response. And if you're already in the autoimmune stage, you understand that if you fire an immune response for any reason and you already have self-antibodies there, you are going to kill that which you have antibodies against first. So am I speaking too fast? Sorry. So if you have antibodies to your own tissue and you still stimulate an immune response because you kill the Lyme too quickly, you will stimulate an immune response that your immune system will then kill that which you have antibodies against, which is your own tissue, and that could make you hurt. So we don't want to do that. So we do have to go slower if you have Lyme. So let's go back to this slide, can you use the Rife for anybody? Will it hurt someone else? I told you to use other programs and stuff, but if you have Lyme, the only caveat is don't overdo the kill programs. So if you have Lyme disease, don't overdo the kill programs. You can run a viral program, but don't run any more bacterial programs. Don't run any more Lyme programs than what I am recommending for you, because we never, ever, ever, ever want a herx. So does a cancer patient ever herx? No. So don't worry about it if you have cancer. If you have Lyme, then no, then you don't want to run too many kill programs. Does that make sense? So that's the only caveat in the use of the use of the Rife. Don't run too many kill programs if you have Lyme. Does that make sense? So the Rife is, did somebody have a question? So the Rife is another tool in our tool bag. It's a tool, and it has to be used properly. It's not a magic wand, but it's a great tool, and it can be a lifesaver tool for people. For Lyme patients, almost all of our Lyme patients recover. There's some that don't for other reasons too, that are just get stuck and we need to go deeper. That's why, hey, just so everybody on this call knows, next Monday we're getting our acoustic therapy installed. I am super, super pumped about this, trying to stay very cautious and pretend I'm not too excited. But I'm cautiously optimistic that this is going to help some of our patients recover that don't have any other hope. And just this last 6 months, we've had more cancer patients that are more gravely ill than I've ever had in my life, that come to us that are just gravely ill. And we've had a lot of Lyme patients that are very, very sick. And whenever I hear about another thing that could possibly help people, I'm a little addicted, maybe a little obsessive compulsive, maybe I need a psychologist, but I want to find out if this is going to be valid and help people. And I'm really excited about the acoustic therapy, very optimistic about it. I think it's going to be another tool that's going to really help people. So if you don't know anything about that, and this is all new to you, next week's call will probably touch on that, and we'll go over that, because that's going to be a cool therapy for people to be able to come in and do a couple days of that could really turn them around, and especially if they're stuck. So contact us about that. So there's another question that people ask, why do you use the True Rife instead of another Rife? Well, when I first got into doing Rife, the True Rife didn't exist. At least I don't think it existed. For the time I graduated chiropractic school in 1986, I was already a pretty expert in kinesiology, head of kinesiology club, really doing what is called functional medicine today, but it didn't have that name then. And I was doing a lot of nutrition, and I had studied a lot about Rife's work. And for some reason, I know now it was the Holy Spirit leading me, but I was so intrigued. I was like, I have got to have a Rife. I just don't know why, but I just got to have a Rife. Well, I never felt like I had permission to buy one. They're expensive, and it's like, well, goodness sakes, they're for cancer patients. I'm just a chiropractor. What am I going to do with a Rife machine? But I just have to have one. So I researched it constantly and nearly pulled the trigger multiple times to purchase one. And I had the one I wanted, the picture of it up on my wall, literally taped to my wall in front of my desk. And it wasn't until, you probably heard this story, a gal came in who was a chiropractic patient of mine who was retired. She was in her late 60s and told me that she had breast cancer in both her breasts, and they gave her 3 months to live. And that's when I just knew that was time to buy the Rife. So that was the machine that I actually bought at the time, was a light beam generator. That was the best Rife on the market at the time. And then I also bought a, golly jeepers, what was it called? It was a different Rife with a bulb, similar looking bulb as the night tube, but it was all DOS computer, and programming was difficult, and the power was like literally 1/50th of the True Rife's power. But so we used those two Rifes in the office. Then I had several other Rifes that I used in the office. And again, when I first started using the Rife, I only treated people in the office. Nobody went home with a Rife, because that just was my paradigm at the time. And so we had really good success. And then I was, again, my OCD-ness kicked in. I had to find better technology and more programmable, easier to use for a patient. And that's when I came across TrueRife, and we started using TrueRife, and our success rate went way up. And Mike at TrueRife is just an innovator, and he's constantly improving his product. So that's one of the reasons why I like working with him. I get no kickback, no benefit. It's just easy to program from my standpoint. It's easy to use, and it works. I think it's the best Rife machine on the market. Otherwise, honestly, I would use something different. So I hope this was valuable for you. I know that we got a number of people on the line that have questions, and then I have some questions that I want to go over if anybody else doesn't want to, is too scared to pipe in. You're unmuted. Does anybody have any questions?
So I have a question. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, excellent. So I have an existing tumor that I can feel in my leg, and I swear in the morning after I do my Rife, sometimes it feels bigger, but by the end of the day it doesn't. Is that normal?
Well, I don't know that anything is normal. So, but as I think through the physiology, what could I think that would be happening? So if you're hitting the tumor with the right frequencies, multiple things are going to happen. So you're going to cause that tumor cells to vibrate. You are going to cause those tumor cells, some of them to lyse, which is the way some of them can die. And you are going to stimulate an immune response to that area. So could it feel bigger? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think that's a way good thing, because you're either one of two things are happening physiologically. Some cells are dying, so it's expanding, and it's vibrating, so it's expanding, because it's causing heat within the tumor itself, and you're stimulating an immune response, so it's expanding. So this is one way the Rife is killing the cancer. The whole purpose of the Rife is to kill the cancer cells, right? So if the Rife, so one of the theories on how the Rife works is that, well, you're hitting it with the frequency of the cancer itself, and you're hitting it with the frequency of the cells. If one of the reasons from a quantum physics perspective that a cell is multiplying rapidly is that it's not resonating at its normal frequency anymore. So it's the cell. So if it's a breast cell and it starts rapid replication, it's not resonating at the same frequency that a normal breast cell should resonate at. So if you can hit it with the right frequencies of the cancer itself and the breast tissue itself, and I program it in everybody's program, is that one of the reasons why the Rife works, is that it's causing the cell to resonate back at its normal frequency, thereby not being cancer anymore, aka not replicating anymore. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I'm just
Thank
trying to
you.
think through the physiology of it. You know, what physiologically could be taking place.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that it like feels bigger, like I think it's growing. I just can tell that it's, I don't know, for lack of a better word, a little more inflamed than.
Yeah. And then let's bring that up too, because somebody asked me that today, is, you know, about inflammation. And so we always talk about, and I do, maybe I'm, but talk about inflammation is bad. Well, when I say inflammation is bad, what I really mean is chronic inflammation is bad. Acute inflammation is good. So it's all balanced. So that's where we got to be careful on the internet and studying things and that we want to label things as bad or good, right? But really, it's about balance. It's not about what's bad or good. It's about, well, too much inflammation, meaning chronic inflammation, yeah, that's bad. But acute inflammation is an immune response. And if you're going to kill cancer, you have to stimulate an immune response. So, do we want, you know, let's say it's the breast, okay? Do we want inflammation around that cancer? Well, yeah, we do. We want acute inflammation around that cancer. This is why I've had numerous patients that have actually gotten really, really sick with the flu and put themselves into remission. Well, how did that happen? Well, they got really super sick, so they stimulated this huge immune response, and that knocked the cancer down and put them in remission. So there was actually a therapy years ago. It's outlawed, that a guy actually would put a number of toxins of different viruses. Hopefully, in his desire would be not to give anybody enough of any one thing that they would actually die. So he put a little strep, put a little staph, put a little virus, put a little this in this concoction, and he'd inject you with it. It was called Coley's toxins because it was Dr. Coley. And you would stimulate this immune response. You'd get really sick. You'd feel like you got the flu. You're throwing up. You're sweating. You're in bed. You're sick. And these people would go into remission. And of course, it was outlawed. And hey, just about 8 months ago, I saw that they're experimenting with it at Cleveland Clinic or something like that again. And it's all this new rage. It's like, freaking kidding me? So, stimulating an immune response locally is possibly one of the ways the Rife is working. So that's that is a benefit. So you having that local inflammation for a short period of time, and that's how hyperthermia works too. So hyperthermia, when we do hyperthermia on a person, you're stimulating this inflammatory response to that area to cause a whole bunch of T cells, your immune response cells, your killer cells, your Marine Corps to get in there, thinking that, oh, there's a fever here, we need to get in here and deal with this. Well, in the hopes that it's going to kill the cancer. Does that help?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Anything else? So we had a couple other questions that were presented to me before this. When I don't have a picture of it, on the back of your Rife machine, you have two things that are little transistors. Um, and for instance, my Rife is about 7 years old, I think, and I've never blown a transistor. How would a person blow one of those transistors? And on most people's machine, you have a hot glued, flipped upside down transistor, hot glued onto the back of your machine with a piece of little foam over the little prongs that would stick out that have to stick in when you replace a transistor. Why Mike a True Rife includes that, I don't know, because I mean, literally in the 8 years that we've used True Rife, I think I've replaced a dozen of those. But and we have 400-500 machines out there, so they're hardly ever replaced. But when we've had to replace them, the most common things is that people had a lightning storm, um, and the second most common thing is they accidentally ran the machine without the bulb plugged in. So if you your bulb is plugged in the front of your machine, and if you got kids in the house and they snag on the cord or it gets unplugged somehow and you don't catch it, that's when it can heat up the motherboard and it can blow the transistor. So just things to look for, okay? And one of the hints that I'm telling most of my patients lately, because we rearranged our bedroom and now we put the Rife underneath our bed, so that it will never snag on the cords. There's no chance that I'm going to actually pull a cord out. So that can be beneficial. But then I'm giving away my little secret that I never actually ever turn my Rife machine off. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but my Rife machine has been on for 5 years. Oh, well, we moved our bedroom around, so I turned it off then. But so I never turn that power switch off. And the other mistake that a person can make that could possibly blow their transistors if they run the program on bath instead of bulb, and that's easy to bump. And if I designed the machine, I would make that switch a little bit more difficult to flip. And I've never actually suggested that to Mike, so I might suggest that to him. Also, if I designed it, I'd remove all the lights. That's what I would do. So, aggravating. Okay, any other questions? I hope everybody's doing well. We're going to have these every week, and currently they're going to be at 4 o'clock on Wednesdays. And if they change, they'll be on the Facebook group. If you are not on the Facebook group, make sure you do get on that, because that's where we'll have our announcements. And these are going to be recorded too, so we'll put those up on the Facebook group. Anything else before we say goodbye? Oh, you've been so good. All right. If you have any other questions, any personal questions, feel free to call and get a time to talk to me. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.